So nice to see you all here. So as you can see, Rasmus, he started on a very early age to build his personal brand, right? So let me just get the clicker, if it works. Okay, yes, one back. Here we go. So as you could hear from Rasmus' story, he started building his personal brand very, very early, right? I started my journey with personal branding before it was even known that it is something called personal branding, right? So I started it like 8, 9 years ago, started creating content on LinkedIn. Back then, there were like 10 people that you could basically, count on your fingers and knew exactly who were the content creators and who were the big people behind the platform. And very fast to this day, what do we have? We have a lot of content. We have a lot of founders, people, professionals creating their brands, trying to generate either sales, trying to get new clients, trying to expand their brand awareness of their business. So this is what personal branding really does, right? So that's what I want to talk about today is basically how you can make sure that personal branding works for you and where you can start and why does it even matter, right? All right, so a little bit about me. My name is Kotryna Kurt, and as you can see in the bottom slide over here, 5, 6 years ago, I think it was 6 years ago, I visited LinkedIn headquarters and I really got inspired. I was already on my journey to create my personal brand, and I visited LinkedIn headquarters in Sunnyvale to see what they're all about. And their mission was actually to connect all the professionals from all around the world and help them connect, but also help people get more business, get new clients, and so forth, right? So when I got to learn about that mission, actually, that was something that would drive me later on to start Linkedist, which I started while having a strong brand already. So that already helped me because from the very first month, we had first clients. So you know what happens? A lot of the times, actually, people start companies and they're not known, right? They don't have a strong brand, they don't have a strong network. So what happens is that it's really difficult for them to generate traction and to get new clients. So what personal branding does is basically you can create your personal brand before you launch something, because when you do that, you actually get clients right away because you already have an audience, right? So one very powerful quote that I always like to mention is that today power is gained by sharing knowledge, not hoarding it, right? This is very important because I do meet a lot of people, and when I talk with them about personal branding, they're all about, hey, but I don't want to say this. What about my competitors? What about if they're going to hear about this? I don't want to share it. But actually today there's so much information, right? There's so much data online that you can find all kinds of things about anything, right? There's nothing to be kept a secret anymore. So I really want people to change their mindset and to actually see, and I actually love HubSpot. I guess a lot of you know HubSpot, right? And this is a quote by their founder and CTO. And again, HubSpot is doing really well as a business, as a company, because they are much more than just a business. They're much more than just a startup. If you would check their C-level people, they're actually communicating a lot. And they're also, as a business, they're communicating on LinkedIn as well with a lot of educational content, right? So it's not only about sharing what you're doing, what your business is doing, but it's also about sharing something educational, right? And how many of you have a personal brand? If you can raise your hands. Okay. Okay. So this was one of those tricky questions, where I ask people, and I love to see it because most often, there's like 50 people or 100 people, and out of those people, there's maybe 2 people or 3 people that are raising their hands. But I must break it down to you. You all have a personal brand, right? So what happened when COVID hit the world was actually that people suddenly started to realize that, my virtual brand is very important as well, because I cannot meet people in real life. I need to meet them virtually. I need to meet them on LinkedIn, right? So our personal brand is divided into 2 parts, right? One is physical. It's the way you look today, as I see you here. Is the way you shake my hand if I say hi to you, is the way you talk to me, right? That's a part of your physical personal brand. Now, when COVID hit the world and when more people started doing business through LinkedIn, people understood that their virtual brands are not that developed. So everything you have about yourself on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, if you have any of those accounts, that's already a part of your personal brand. And a funny side story thing is that when we were hiring some new people, these days I'm also not only looking into LinkedIn, I'm actually looking all across the internet. So I found some, candidates being really good candidates on paper, but then I would find their TikTok accounts. And maybe that would give me another look into their life. Not saying a bad or a good one, but just another reason to see how they are, right? So again, that's the power of personal branding. You need to start early as you can, to generate results for your business or for yourself. Even if you're not a startup founder, if you're working at a startup, in your career in the future, this will be still helpful. So basically, it's creating something that is valuable for yourself and that will be your value for the rest of your life. You will never lose those people. You will never lose that network that you will create for yourself. And in simple words, it's your reputation, right? So whatever you have about yourself online, offline, whatever you have about your name and last name, all kinds of articles, posts, that's a part of your reputation. And why do people need to care about personal branding, right? And especially having a strong brand. So there are a few reasons. One is that you're showing your expertise. So all of you here are your industry professionals, right? So what you can do with your personal brand and your content is that you can actually share your expertise, share your ideas, share your learnings, and so forth. Increase exposure for your employer, or in some cases for your startup, and also establish and achieve goals, right? Whether those goals are personal goals or organizational goals, like generating more business, you can do that with your personal brand. And also crisis management, right? A lot of the times when companies have crisis, a lot of founders are looking into LinkedIn to actually share about what's happening and so forth. So in some way, it can also be like a place to manage your internal crisis. Hopefully, you don't have any, but just in case. And again, LinkedIn has done some research, and 85% of people meet us virtually these days. So even before they invite you for a cup of coffee, even before they invite you to meet, have a demo call, have a trial call, they actually check you online. And funny fact, actually, been talking with some recruiters, and they said that it takes them around from 5 to 10 seconds to evaluate somebody's profile. That's a very short amount of time that you actually have to leave a good impression. And the same with investors, right? When they're scouting for startups, imagine you're an investor that is having lots and lots and lots of messages every single day. How would you deal with that whole demand of messages? I mean, you are probably just checking the profiles, right? You have just little amount of time. So you don't have enough time and you do it very quickly. And that's why, again, you need to have the right impression. Now let's take a look at some statistics, some interesting ones. So there was a company from Holland, and they have done a research where they have evaluated the company's brand versus the C-level or founders' brands, right, or CEO brands. And in this case, what they found was that a company, for example, called Santander, they had over 1 million followers on LinkedIn. Now their chair, Anna, she had around 300,000 followers. Still, every time she would make a post, she would get over 2,000% more engagement on her content. So it didn't matter how strong the company page was. It was still more about people. Okay, let's take a look at another example. Volkswagen. Everybody knows this company, right? So at the point of research, they had 861,000 followers. Now their chairman, Herbert, he had 114,000. Still, every time he would make a post, he would get 400% more engagement. And the final example, coming from IKEA. Everybody know IKEA, of course. So IKEA had, at a point of research, over 1.6 million followers on LinkedIn. And their CEO, Jesper, he had 37,000. Now still, every time he would make a post, he would get 300% more engagement on average. So that kind of showed us as well, this whole research, that no matter how strong your company brand is, people behind the brands matter much more. And they can actually generate more traction, more business, and more sales. Now, when I talk about personal branding, I want all of you to take one thing as homework from this talk. And that is to think about 1 or 2 keywords that you want people to associate you with. So if somebody thinks about LinkedIn and somebody working with LinkedIn and startups, I want them to have my name in their brain, right, and in their head. And that's what I'm trying to do with my content, right, with personal branding. That's exactly what you need to think about. So if somebody thinks of events, okay, they think of you. If somebody thinks of fintech, maybe they think of you, right? So you need to identify to yourself first, where do you want to be known, in which areas, how do you want to brand yourself? And from then on, you can actually start your journey. Because if you just create content for the sake of creating content, you don't leave that track in people's minds about yourself. But the whole idea of personal branding is that you actually leave a tiny trace of you, of your name, connected with a specific topic. Basically, that's what it is. And again, some research by LinkedIn showed a year ago, it showed us that 89, since we're talking also about sales today, right, and personal branding, 89% of decision makers said that they trust a business or an organization much more if there is somebody communicating, if they have thought leaders. That's simply because of psychological thing that if I am buying from IKEA and I know who are the people behind IKEA, I trust that company much more. If I'm buying from a startup, but I know who the startup founder is, and he or she are communicating quite a lot, then I trust them more. And I know if shit's gonna go down, I know who I'm gonna blame, right? So it's like a very simple psychological factor that we trust people or organizations much more if we know who are the people standing behind them. And another thing about sales, right? Because I know that a lot of times, like, people are saying, yeah, create content, yeah, it doesn't drive me sales. Of course, it's a long-term game. You're not gonna start creating content and the next day you're getting leads, right? Before launching Linkedist, I've been communicating for a year and a half. And then when we launched, actually we had our first clients and they were inbound. We did not do cold outreach yet. So that's exactly what you're trying to get to. It's a long-term game, but it works. And 49% of people say that actually creating content, and when people create content, that influences their buying decisions, meaning that, you have more touch points. And personal branding really helps. There was another research done at the very end of last year, specifically in UK. And this new research finds founders with more followers raise more for their unicorns. That was a very interesting research for me, specifically to see and try to see how much they raised and how much followers they had, right? But it's kind of it makes sense, right? Because the more followers you have, the bigger network you have. Your network is your net worth, right? The bigger network you have, the more people know about you, the bigger buzz you can create. And then, people believe in you. People believe in what you're trying to build. So that's very simple. And when we're talking about long-term benefits, there are a few. So in the early stage, if you're creating content, there's more inbound leads, right? There's more shortlisting. In the middle stage, meaning you're creating content already for a while, like 1-2 years, right? Faster sales cycles, higher close rates, bigger deal sizes, more people are getting aware of you. That's exactly what happened to us as well. And the end stage, which, again, I don't know when is the end stage for somebody with personal branding, but I guess after more than 5 years, increased customer loyalty, higher lifetime value. So these are some of the benefits. And to be honest, marketing is very, very technical and strategic. A lot of people try to, when they talk about content creation or marketing, sometimes they say, oh, marketing is fluffy. Oh, content creation is fluffy. We actually do workshops about LinkedIn algorithm because there's so many technical things. And if you know some of the technicalities, you know exactly why some posts are going viral and why some posts are not going viral. So there's lots of things involved, and again, it's a game that is very highly calculated. And then we also had another research where we looked at, not we, but another company looked at company versus brand, company versus leader, right? And as you could see from the pink line, these are the brands, and the comments that they get on the pink line, it's from the leaders' posts. So again, we can see how little comments and interactions brands are getting versus their leaders at the company. That's one more reason to think about personal branding. And then if you're thinking about personal branding, these are some of the questions that you should be asking yourself. Now, I will not dwell too long on this slide. You're welcome to take a screenshot. But if you're really serious about your brand, then this is what you need to think about, right? You need to think about what describes the best, what keywords, what's your tone of voice, how you're going to communicate to your audience. And I feel like the last one is the most important one, right? Like which people will read your post, your target audience, and which people do you want to reach? And are those two audiences actually matching or not? So this is exactly what you need to think about. And one of the latest facts, statistics from LinkedIn themselves that they shared was that 70% of decision makers research during their workday, right? More than 70% of decision makers research during the evenings, and around 50% of decision makers research during the weekends. So this says to us that creating content and, for example, posting in the evening, posting in the weekend is actually going to get you traction, and decision makers are going to see what you're posting, basically, right? So if we're talking about sales. Because personal branding is a sales machine, right? If you make it to be. If you just want to post for the sake of posting, then maybe not. But if you make it to be, then it can be a sales machine for you. And if we're looking at the customer journey, of course, it depends on what business you are. You know, some businesses are selling products and services in minutes. Some businesses are selling their products in years. But on average, within the customer journey, out of many touch points, a lot are digital. So the more digital touch points you have, the more you can expose yourself for your buyers, in front of your buyers, the better it is. So I just have one more example before the ending of the session. This is an example from the automotive road to purchase. So, you know, somebody is trying to buy a car. And this is the amount of the touch points that they have, if not more, during their journey to get something, right? This is more like B2C. But you can see from the pink ones, those are the ones that actually they are physical, right? And the rest of the things, they're digital. So with this journey, I can show you that this is, you know, for B2C, but imagine buying for a B2B. Sometimes it's even more difficult and more tricky. And then imagine, you know, having another business deciding if they have to buy something from another business. That can also take much longer. So imagine also adding a lot of decision makers into this process. This is just one person. This is just one person trying to figure out if they want to buy something. Now, double that, triple that. You know, imagine there are like 50 people, decision makers trying to buy something, right, from another business. Imagine how long that journey is and how many digital touch points there are. And one of the reasons why I'm showing you this is that actually a lot of digital touch points are on LinkedIn. And you can easily show, you know, with your content, with whatever you're doing on the platform, remind them about yourself, about your business. And I really like Neil Patel. So for the ending, you know, I see I have 1 minute. It takes 5 to 7 impressions for someone to remember a brand. So you can see that actually 95% of content on LinkedIn, it's people's content. Meaning that somebody liked something, somebody commented somewhere, somebody reshared, somebody posted. You barely see company content. So what I'm trying to say is the more people post, the more people create content for your network, the easier it is for people to remember your brand. And that's the goal. And talking about how long does it take to get your first results, well, I can share with you that we had one founder as a that we were working with. For example, in half a year, creating constantly good content and valuable content every single week. He had his first TED Talk in 6 months. And he never dreamt of that, you know? So that was something that came out of content for him. But to wrap it up, because I see that there's no more seconds left, these are the benefits that communicating on LinkedIn and having a personal brand can bring you. So brand awareness, lead warm-up, lead conversations and conversions, partnership opportunities, exclusive invites, and bigger investments. So I hope this little talk gives you a little bit more of an in-depth view into what personal branding is, how it can work for you. If you're still struggling, we have a free ebook for everybody on content writing. So make sure to download that. But other than that, thank you so much for being here. Let's connect on LinkedIn if you have any more questions and chat over there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kotryna. Thank you. You can give it like that.